Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. Elena Martinez had always believed that life-changing moments came with warning signs, thunder before lightning, dark clouds before the storm. She never imagined that the most profound shift in her existence would happen in the span of 60 seconds. On an ordinary Tuesday morning, while she was struggling with a broken coffee maker and running late for work, a knock on her door came. At exactly 7:43 a.m., she knew because she'd been staring at the clock, calculating whether she had time to stop for coffee on her way to the office. Her hair was still damp from the shower, and she was wearing her favorite navy blazer, the one that made her feel confident, even on the most challenging days. "Just a minute," she called out, assuming it was Mrs. Patterson from next door. Probably complaining about the music again. But when Elena opened the door, her breath caught in her throat. Standing in her doorway was a man she'd never seen before, yet somehow felt she'd been waiting for her entire life. He was tall with dark hair that caught the morning light, and eyes the color of storm clouds. There was something gentle about his smile, something that made her forget she was late, forget she was annoyed about the coffee maker, forget everything except the way he was looking at her. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, his voice warm and slightly nervous. "I'm Gabriel. I just moved in next door, and I think your newspaper got mixed up with mine." He held up 2 newspapers. One clearly labeled with her apartment number. Elena found herself unable to speak for a moment. It wasn't just his appearance that caught her off guard. It was the way he stood there, patient and kind, as if he had all the time in the world, as if this moment, this simple exchange, mattered to him as much as it suddenly mattered to her. "Oh," she finally managed, accepting her newspaper with fingers that trembled slightly. "Thank you. I'm Elena." "Elena," he repeated, as if testing how her name felt on his tongue. "That's beautiful." She felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Thank you for bringing this over. You didn't have to." "I wanted to," Gabriel said simply. "I was hoping to meet my neighbors anyway." There was something in his tone, a hint of loneliness that Elena recognized because she'd been carrying it herself for so long. She'd moved to this apartment complex 6 months ago, after her divorce was finalized, seeking independence and a fresh start. She told herself she was content with her solitary life, her quiet evenings, her predictable routines. But standing here, looking into Gabriel's eyes, she realized how much she'd been missing. "Have you lived here long?" Gabriel asked, seemingly in no hurry to leave. 6 months, Elena replied, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "It's a nice building. Quiet. That's what I was hoping for," he said, then paused. "I'm sorry. I can see you're getting ready for work." "I don't want to make you late." Elena glanced at her watch. 7:46 a.m. She should have been out the door 3 minutes ago. But something about Gabriel made her want to throw her schedule out the window, to invite him in for coffee, to learn everything about him. "It's okay," she said. "I have a few minutes." Gabriel's smile widened, and Elena felt her heart skip in a way it hadn't in years. "I was actually wondering," he said, "if you might know of any good coffee places around here. I haven't had a chance to explore the neighborhood yet." Elena's broken coffee maker suddenly seemed like a blessing in disguise. "There's a wonderful little cafe called Sunrise Grounds about 3 blocks down. They have the best lattes in the city." She paused, surprising herself with her boldness. "I was actually heading there myself. If you'd like, we could walk together." The invitation hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility. Elena held her breath, suddenly terrified that she'd been too forward, that she'd misread the connection she felt sparking between them. Gabriel's face lit up. I'd love that. As they walked to the cafe together, Elena learned that Gabriel was a landscape architect who'd just transferred to the city for a new job. He'd left behind a life in Portland that had become too painful to bear, a story hinted at but didn't fully tell. She shared her own story of starting over, of rebuilding herself after a marriage that had slowly drained the color from her world. It's strange, Gabriel said as they reached the cafe, how you can live somewhere for years and feel completely alone, and then move to a new place and immediately feel hopeful. Elena understood exactly what he meant. She'd felt more alive in the past 20 minutes than she had in months. They ordered their coffee a vanilla latte for her, black coffee for him, and found a small table by the window. The morning sun streamed through the glass, creating a golden halo around Gabriel's dark hair. Elena found herself memorizing every detail of his face, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the small scar near his left eyebrow that she wanted to ask about but didn't dare. I have a confession, Gabriel said, stirring his coffee slowly. The newspapers weren't actually mixed up. Eleanor's heart stopped. What do you mean? I saw you leaving for work yesterday morning, he said, color rising in his cheeks. You were laughing at something on your phone, and you looked so radiant. I wanted to meet you, but I didn't know how. When I saw the newspapers this morning, I thought maybe it was my chance. Elena stared at him, processing his words. You made up the newspaper mix-up. I'm sorry, Gabriel said quickly. I know it sounds crazy. I just I haven't felt drawn to someone like this in a very long time. I thought maybe you might feel it too. Eleanor's first instinct was to be annoyed, to feel manipulated. But as she looked into Gabriel's earnest eyes, she saw not deception but courage. How long had it been since someone had gone out of their way to meet her? How long since someone had looked at her the way Gabriel was looking at her now? I do feel it, she admitted quietly. But I'm scared. Of what? Of this, she said, gesturing between them. Of how easy it feels to talk to you. Of how much I want to know everything about you. I've just gotten my life back together. And I don't want to lose myself again. Gabriel reached across the table, not quite touching her hand, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his skin. What if instead of losing yourself, you found more of who you are? Eleanor's breath caught. It was exactly what she needed to hear, and exactly what terrified her most. They talked until Elena was an hour late for work, something she'd never done before. Gabriel told her about his passion for creating beautiful spaces, about how he'd gotten into landscape architecture because he believed everyone deserved to be surrounded by beauty. Elena shared her work as a graphic designer, her dream of starting her own studio, her love of vintage books and rainy afternoons. I should go, Elena finally said, though every fiber of her being wanted to stay. Of course, Gabriel said, standing. Immediately. Can I walk you to your car? As they walked back toward their building, Elena felt a familiar anxiety creeping in. This was where it would end, she thought. They'd exchange pleasantries, maybe promise to see each other around, and then slowly fade back into their separate lives. But as they reached her car, Gabriel turned to her with an expression so tender, it made her chest ache. Elena, he said softly, would you like to have dinner with me tonight? I know a place that serves the best pasta in the city. Eleanor's heart hammered against her ribs. It had been 2 years since she'd been on a real date. 2 years since she'd allowed herself to be vulnerable with someone new. But looking at Gabriel, she felt something she'd almost forgotten existed: hope. I'd like that, she said. 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock. Gabriel smiled, and for a moment, Elena forgot to breathe. "I'll pick you up at your door," he said. "And this time, I promise I'll have a real reason to be there." Elena laughed, surprising herself. "I'll see you at 7. As she drove to work, Elena caught herself smiling at red lights, humming along to songs on the radio. She felt like a teenager again, giddy with the possibility of new love. But she also felt like a woman who'd learned the value of protecting her heart. That evening, Elena stood in front of her closet for 30 minutes, trying on and discarding outfit after outfit. She wanted to look beautiful, but not like she was trying too hard. She wanted to feel confident, but not overdressed. Finally, she settled on a simple black dress that made her feel elegant and comfortable. At exactly 7 o'clock, Gabriel knocked on her door. When Elena opened it, her breath caught all over again. He was wearing a dark blue button-down shirt that brought out his eyes, and he was holding a single white rose. "I thought about getting a whole bouquet," he said, offering her the flower. "But then I thought about what you said this morning, about being scared of this. I didn't want to overwhelm you." Elena accepted the rose, touched by his thoughtfulness. "It's perfect." The restaurant Gabriel had chosen was small and intimate, with exposed brick walls and candles flickering on every table. They were seated in a corner booth that felt like their own private world. "Tell me about Portland," Elena said as they shared an appetizer of bruschetta. "What made you leave?" Gabriel's expression grew serious. "I was engaged," he said quietly. "Her name was Sarah. We'd been together for 3 years, planning our whole life together. 2 weeks before the wedding, she told me she'd fallen in love with someone else." Eleanor's heart ached for him. "I'm so sorry." "The worst part wasn't that she left," Gabriel continued. "It was that I realized I'd been holding on to something that had already died. We'd grown apart slowly, so gradually that neither of us noticed. Until it was too late. I stayed in Portland for 6 months after that, trying to figure out how to start over in a place where everything reminded me of her." Elena reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. It was the first time. They touched, and she felt electricity shoot through her entire body. "I understand," she said. "My ex-husband didn't cheat, but he might as well have. He stopped seeing me years before he finally left. I became invisible in my own marriage." Gabriel turned his hand over, intertwining their fingers. "How could anyone not see you?" Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "I asked myself that question every day for 2 years. You're not invisible to me," Gabriel said softly. "You're the most vivid thing in my world right now." They talked through 3 courses, sharing stories of heartbreak and healing, of dreams deferred and hopes renewed. Elena learned that Gabriel grew up in a small town in Oregon, that he'd wanted to be an artist but had been told it wasn't practical, that he'd found his compromise in landscape architecture. Gabriel learned that Elena had once dreamed of being a novelist, that she still wrote poetry in secret, that she'd given up so many pieces of herself in her marriage that she was still discovering who she was without it. "What's your biggest fear?" Gabriel asked as they shared tiramisu for dessert. Elena considered the question seriously. "Getting lost again," she said finally. "I spent so many years trying to be what someone else needed that I forgot what I needed. I'm afraid of falling into that pattern again." "And what do you need?" Gabriel asked. Elena looked into his eyes, seeing her own reflection there. "I need to stay myself. I need to keep growing. I need someone who sees me clearly and loves what they see. I can't promise I'll never hurt you," Gabriel said. "But I can promise that I'll always see you. All of you." Elena felt something shift inside her chest, like a door opening after being locked for years. "That's all I can ask for." As Gabriel walked her to her door that night, Elena felt the familiar flutter of first date nerves. Would he kiss her? Did she want him to? The answer came immediately. Yes, more than she'd wanted anything in a long time. But instead of kissing her, Gabriel cupped her face gently in his hands and pressed his forehead against hers. "Thank you," he whispered, "for trusting me with your story, for letting me take you to dinner, for making me feel less alone." Elena closed her eyes, breathing in his scent, memorizing the feeling of his hands on her face. "Thank you for knocking on my door. I'm going to do it again tomorrow," Gabriel said. "And the day after that, if you'll let me." Elena smiled, opening her eyes to meet his. "I'll let you." Gabriel stepped back, his hands lingering on her face for a moment longer. "Good night, Elena." "Good night, Gabriel." As Elena watched him walk to his own door, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the delicious anticipation of tomorrow. For the first time since her divorce, she was excited about what came next. The next morning, Elena woke before her alarm, already looking forward to Gabriel's knock. She made coffee, her machine mysteriously working perfectly again, and waited. At exactly 7:43 a.m., the same time he'd knocked the day before, she heard his familiar tap on her door. "Good morning," Gabriel said when she opened it. He was holding 2 cups of coffee from Sunrise Grounds. "I thought maybe we could walk to work together again." Elena accepted the coffee gratefully. "How did you know I take vanilla lattes?" Pay attention," Gabriel said simply. As they walked, Elena realized that Gabriel had perfectly recreated their first morning together, down to the coffee order and the timing. But instead of feeling manipulated, she felt cherished. He was showing her that yesterday hadn't been a fluke, that he was willing to put effort into making her feel special. "I have something to tell you," Elena said as they reached the cafe where they'd had their first real conversation. Gabriel's expression grew concerned. "What is it?" "I called in sick to work yesterday," Elena admitted. "I never do that, ever, but I didn't want our coffee to end." Gabriel's face broke into a brilliant smile. "I'm glad you did. I'm scared that I'm falling too fast," Elena continued. "We just met, and I already can't imagine my mornings without you." Gabriel stopped walking and turned to face her. "Elena, can I tell you something?" She nodded. "I've been living in that apartment for 3 weeks," he said. "I've watched you leave for work every morning, and I've wanted to talk to you every single time. Yesterday wasn't about the newspapers. It was about finally finding the courage to knock on your door." Elena stared at him. 3 weeks? I know it sounds crazy," Gabriel said quickly, "but there was something about you that I couldn't shake. The way you always paused to pet Mrs. Patterson's cat before you got in your car. The way you hummed while you walked. The way you looked up at the sky like you were checking for possibilities." Elena felt her heart racing. "You really noticed all that?" "I noticed everything," Gabriel said. "And I wanted to know the woman behind those small, beautiful moments." Elena felt tears welling in her eyes. When was the last time someone had paid such careful attention to her? When was the last time someone had seen her as more than just another person moving through the world? "I'm falling too fast too," Gabriel admitted. "But maybe sometimes the best things happen fast. Maybe sometimes you just know." Elena looked into his eyes and saw her own feelings reflected there: hope, fear, possibility, courage. "Maybe you do just know." Gabriel reached for her hand, interlacing their fingers. "So what do we do now?" Elena smiled, feeling braver than she had in years. "We see what happens next." Over the following weeks, Elena and Gabriel fell into a rhythm that felt both new and familiar. They had coffee together every morning, sometimes at the cafe, sometimes on Elena's small balcony overlooking the courtyard. Gabriel would tell her about his latest project, healing garden for a local hospital, and Elena would share her sketches for logos and designs. In the evenings, They cooked dinner together, taking turns choosing recipes and experimenting with new dishes. Gabriel was patient and methodical in the kitchen, while Elena was spontaneous and intuitive. Somehow, their different approaches created perfect meals. But it was the quiet moments that Elena treasured most. The way Gabriel would read while she worked on her laptop, both of them comfortable in the silence. The way he'd reach for her hand during movies, his thumb tracing small circles on her palm. The way he'd wake up early on weekends just to watch her sleep, his hand gentle on her hair. "I love you," Gabriel said one evening as they sat on Elena's balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Elena's heart stopped. They'd been together for 6 weeks, and while she'd felt those words building in her chest for days, she'd been too scared to say them first. "I love you too," she whispered back. Gabriel turned to face her, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I never thought I'd get to say that again, and mean it." Elena cupped his face in her hands, the same way he'd done on their first date. "You mean it? More than I've ever meant anything," Gabriel said when Gabriel kissed her. Elena felt like she was coming home to herself. His lips were soft and warm, and he kissed her like she was precious, like she was worth savoring. Elena had forgotten that kisses could be tender and passionate at the same time, that they could speak volumes without words. "Stay tonight, Elena," whispered against his lips. Gabriel pulled back to look at her, his expression serious. "Are you sure?" Elena nodded. "I'm sure." That night, as Gabriel held her in his arms, Elena felt something she'd never experienced before: complete peace. Not just the satisfaction of physical intimacy, but the deep contentment of being truly seen and cherished by another person. "Gabriel," she whispered into the darkness. "Thank you for knocking on my door." Gabriel tightened his arms around her. "Thank you for opening it." But their story wasn't without challenges. A month later, Eleanor's ex-husband Mark called, wanting to reconcile. He'd heard through mutual friends that Elena was seeing someone new, and suddenly he was desperate to win her back. "I made a mistake," Mark said when Elena agreed to meet him for coffee. "I didn't appreciate what I had. I want to try again." Elena looked at the man she'd been married to for 5 years, the man she'd once thought she'd spend her life with. He looked older, more tired, but also more sincere than she'd seen him in years. "Mark," she said gently, "you don't want me back. You want the idea of me back. You want to not be alone." "That's not true," Mark protested. "I love you, Elena. I always have." "No," Elena said firmly. "You loved having me. You loved having someone to take care of you, to make your life easier. But you never loved me for who I am." Mark's face crumpled. "I can change." Elena felt a pang of sympathy for him, but also a clarity she'd never had before. "I'm sure you can. But I've changed too. I'm not the same person I was when we were married." "Because of him?" Mark asked bitterly. "Because of me," Elena corrected. "I found myself again, and I found someone who loves the person I actually am, not the person he wants me to be." When Elena told Gabriel about her meeting with Mark, she expected him to be upset or jealous. Instead, he pulled her into his arms and held her tight. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Sad," Elena admitted, "but also free. I never realized how much I've been carrying around: guilt, regret, what-ifs. Seeing him again, I finally understand that we weren't right for each other. We were just comfortable." Gabriel stroked her hair. "Comfortable isn't enough." "No," Elena agreed. "It's not." That night, as they lay in bed together, Elena turned to face Gabriel. "I need to tell you something." Gabriel's expression grew serious. "What is it?" I'm not just falling in love with you, Elena said. I'm falling in love with myself again, with who I am when I'm with you. Gabriel's eyes filled with tears. That's the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me. I mean it, Elena continued. You make me want to be brave. You make me want to take risks. You make me want to write poetry again and dream big dreams. Gabriel kissed her forehead. You make me want to create beautiful things. You make me want to be worthy of your love. You already are, Elena whispered as the seasons change. So did Elena and Gabriel's relationship. They moved in together, combining their belongings and their lives in ways that felt natural and right. Gabriel's landscape, architecture books shared shelf space with Elena's design portfolios. His plants thrived under Elena's care, while her creative projects flourished under his encouragement. Elena finally started writing again. Not just poetry, but the novel she'd always dreamed of. Gabriel read every word, offering feedback and encouragement. In return, Elena helped Gabriel with his presentation for the hospital healing garden, her design skills bringing his vision to life. We're good together, Elena said one evening as they worked side by side at their shared desk. We're better than good, Gabriel replied. We're partners. Elena looked up from her laptop, meeting his eyes. Partners. It wasn't just a word, it was a promise. A commitment to support each other's dreams, to grow together instead of apart, to choose each other every day. 1 year after their first meeting, Gabriel recreated their initial encounter. He knocked on Elena's door at exactly 7:43 a.m., holding 2 newspapers. Excuse me, he said when she opened the door, trying to keep a straight face. I think your newspaper got mixed up with mine. Elena played along, accepting the newspaper with exaggerated confusion. Oh my, thank you so much, stranger. I'm Elena. Gabriel, he said, extending his hand. I was wondering if you might know of any good coffee places around here. Elena grinned. I know just the place. Would you like to walk together? But instead of heading to the cafe, Gabriel led Elena to the building's rooftop garden, a space he'd been secretly transforming for months. The rooftop was covered in flowers, twinkling lights, and a small table set for 2. Gabriel, Elena, breathed, taking in the magical scene. When did you do all this? I've been working on it for months, he said. I wanted to create something beautiful for you. Something that was just ours. Elena turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. It's perfect. Gabriel knelt down on one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. Elena, a year ago, I knocked on your door with a made-up story about newspapers. But everything I felt that day was real. The connection, the hope, the feeling that I'd found the person I'd been looking for my whole life. Elena's hands flew to her mouth as Gabriel opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring. I love your courage, Gabriel continued. I love your kindness. I love the way you see beauty in everything. I love the way you make me want to be a better man. Elena Martinez, will you marry me? Elena dropped to her knees in front of him, framing his face with her hands. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes, yes. As Gabriel slipped the ring onto her finger, Elena thought about that morning a year ago when she'd been running late for work, frustrated with her broken coffee maker, thinking it was just another ordinary day. She'd had no idea that her life was about to change completely. It was just a minute, she said aloud. What was? Gabriel asked, pulling her into his arms. That first morning when you knocked on my door. It was just a minute, but it changed everything. Gabriel smiled, the same smile that had made her forget to breathe that very first day. The best minute of my life. Elena looked around at the rooftop garden, at the life they'd built together, at the future stretching out before them, bright with possibility. Mine too. As they sat together watching the sunrise, Elena realized that she'd been wrong about life-changing moments. They didn't always come with warning signs. Sometimes they came disguised as ordinary Tuesday mornings, as simple knocks on the door, as strangers with kind eyes and gentle smiles. Sometimes they came quietly, in the space between one heartbeat and the next, when you opened your door and found not just a person, but a whole new world of possibility. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, they came with a made-up story about newspapers and a man brave enough to risk everything for love. "I love you," Elena whispered, the words carrying all the weight of her gratitude, her joy, her hope for their future. "I love you too," Gabriel replied, his voice thick with emotion. "And I promise to keep knocking on your door every morning for the rest of our lives." Elena smiled, leaning into his embrace as the sun painted the sky in brilliant colors. "And I promise to keep opening it." It had been just a minute 60 seconds that divided her life into before and after. But what a beautiful after it had turned out to be.